No, sir, I don't got no bodies. Don't put me in that conversation in any type of situation. Don't troll with it. Don't rap about it. Don't even speak on it, as Boosie just got a very light sentence in the feds, and I say beating the feds because they wanted prison time from him, but he was able to walk it down.
Pushy just dropped something on Instagram that instantly had the entire hip-hop world buzzing, and Boosie allegedly fired back in a way nobody saw coming. Pooh Shiesty captioned his photo, "The only rapper with more bodies than me is Lil Boosie." And what unfolded after that? Completely wild. We're talking federal investigations, alleged paid hits, a 15-year-old shooter who said the guilt kept him up at night, and confessions that landed multiple people behind bars for life. This isn't just rap beef anymore. This is turning federal, and the streets are paying close attention. Stay locked in, because what Boosie reportedly said in response might seriously shock you. Lil Boosie has long been considered a legend in the rap world, no debate. The Baton Rouge native built his reputation on raw honesty and representing the streets harder than most artists ever dared. But the deeper story behind his name is where things get intense. Boosie has been connected to one of the most disturbing alleged murder-for-hire cases ever discussed in hip-hop circles. We're talking claims of 15 bodies, a teenage hitman known as Marlo Mike, and courtroom confessions that rocked Louisiana. Now Pooh Shiesty is online trolling, suggesting he's got more bodies than Boosie, and the internet is losing its mind. But to understand why this diss feels so dangerous, and why people say it's pulling federal attention, we need to rewind and look at what actually happened around those alleged 15 murders. Let me walk you through it. Let's take it back to the mid-2000s in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At that time, the streets were heating up, and Boosie's music career was taking off while rumors swirled about activities far beyond rap. According to federal investigators and testimony presented in court, Boosie wasn't just describing street life in his lyrics. Prosecutors claimed he was allegedly playing a role in organizing it. Enter Marlo Mike, whose real name is Michael Louding. This kid was just 15 years old when he allegedly became Boosie's personal trigger man. Yeah, you heard that correctly, a teenager reportedly carrying out hits for a rap star. According to court records and Marlo Mike's own statements, Boosie was allegedly paying him to take out people he had issues with. And we're not talking about a couple of incidents. Prosecutors described a pattern that investigators linked to 15 lives lost. The connection between Boosie and Marlo Mike was reportedly built on loyalty, cash, and intimidation. Marlo Mike looked up to Boosie almost like a big brother figure, and authorities claim that influence played a role in turning this young teen into a shooter. People in the streets suspected something was happening, but nobody spoke up. In that environment, staying quiet is the rule, because speaking out can make you the next name on the list. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. Marlo Mike wasn't some cold-blooded veteran who could just block it all out. He was still a kid. And after those alleged 15 hits, the pressure of what he'd done reportedly started breaking him down. Testimony says he struggled to sleep at night. The memories of the victims kept replaying in his head. The guilt kept building until it became impossible to carry anymore. So what did he do next? Marlo Mike went to the authorities and started talking. And not just a little, he laid everything out. Names, timelines, locations, and the full story as he told it. Most importantly, he allegedly pointed to Boosie as the person who ordered the hits and provided the payments. Now let's look at the 15 victims connected to this case. According to court files and Marlo Mike's confession, investigators believed these weren't random acts of violence. Each killing was allegedly tied to a specific motive: street rivalries, accusations of snitching, personal disrespect, or disputes over money and business. The victims reportedly included Terry Boyd, who was shot and killed in October 2009. That case eventually became the centerpiece of Boosie's trial. Prosecutors claimed Boosie paid Marlo Mike around $2,800 to carry out the hit after a dispute with Boyd. Then there was Marcus Thomas, another victim authorities linked to the case. Street rumors suggested Thomas had been talking too much, and prosecutors argued Boosie wanted him permanently silenced. Chris Jackson was also among the names mentioned, killed in what investigators described as a targeted execution. Marlo Mike later testified that Boosie allegedly gave him direct instructions on how the hit should go down, and the list didn't stop there. Daryl Milton, Michael Smith, Kendrick Bishop, prosecutors connected all of them to what they described as a larger operation tied to Boosie. Every one of those victims had families, people who cared about them, and lives that ended far too soon over street conflicts and escalating rap drama. But the story gets even more intense. According to Marlo Mike's testimony, Boosie allegedly didn't just order the hits. He was detailed about how they should happen. Investigators said he gave instructions about the weapons to use, when the moment was right, and how to move in a way that would avoid police attention. Prosecutors argued this wasn't random street violence. It looked calculated, organized, and chillingly deliberate. Marlo Mike told authorities that after each job, Boosie would allegedly pay him cash. Sometimes a few $1,000s, sometimes more depending on who the target was. For a 15-year-old kid growing up in the streets, that kind of money felt like everything. But as the body count grew, the cash couldn't buy him peace. Testimony also revealed that Marlo Mike eventually began suffering mentally from what he had done. He reportedly had nightmares, waking up drenched in sweat, seeing the faces of the people he claimed to have killed. He struggled to eat, struggled to function. The psychological weight of living as a teenage hitman was, according to testimony, tearing him apart from the inside. By the time Marlo Mike finally went to the police, he was ready to put everything on the table. He reportedly gave detailed confessions about multiple murders, handed over information, and agreed to testify against Boosie in court. In the streets, people labeled him a snitch, but Marlo Mike claimed he simply couldn't carry the weight of what he'd done any longer. Lil Boosie's trial quickly turned into one of the most closely watched cases hip-hop had ever seen. In May 2012, Boosie stood trial for the first-degree murder of Terry Boyd. The prosecution's key witness, Marlo Mike himself. When he took the stand, the courtroom heard disturbing testimony about how Boosie allegedly ordered the hit on Boyd. Marlo Mike walked the jury through the details, how the shooting happened, the weapon he said he used, and the amount he claimed Boosie paid him afterward. The courtroom reportedly went completely quiet as this young man, now in his early 20s, described what he said was his life as a teenage hitman. According to his testimony, Marlo Mike said Boosie told him Terry Boyd needed to be handled because of ongoing street tensions. He claimed he tracked Boyd, waited until the moment felt right, and then fired multiple shots. Afterward, Marlo Mike testified that Boosie allegedly paid him $2,800 and told him he did a good job. The defense pushed back hard, arguing that Marlo Mike was lying in hopes of receiving a lighter sentence. They portrayed him as an unreliable witness who was telling stories to save himself. Throughout the entire trial, Boosie maintained his innocence, insisting he had nothing to do with any killings. But prosecutors said they had more than just Marlo Mike's word. They presented phone records that allegedly showed communication between Boosie and Marlo Mike around the times of certain murders. They also pointed to financial evidence involving cash movements and witnesses who claimed they overheard conversations connected to the case. The jury spent hours deliberating. Meanwhile, the hip-hop world watched closely, waiting to find out whether one of rap's biggest names would actually be found guilty of murder. In the end, the jury returned a verdict of not guilty for Boosie in the Terry Boyd murder case. The streets lit up with celebration. Supporters were cheering, and Boosie walked out of that courtroom a free man on that charge. But the story didn't end there. While Boosie beat the murder accusation, Marlo Mike faced a very different outcome. He was ultimately convicted of multiple murders and received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. At just 22 years old, Marlo Mike was sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars for crimes he committed as a teenager. Now fast forward to 2024, and suddenly Pooh Shiesty posts something on Instagram claiming the only rapper with more bodies than him is Lil Boosie. Instantly, the streets started buzzing. Was it a diss? Was he trolling for attention? Or was he trying to send a deeper message? Either way, the post grabbed everyone's attention, including, allegedly, Boosie himself. According to reports, Boosie responded by warning younger rappers about risking their freedom just to go viral on social media. And this whole situation points to a much bigger issue inside hip-hop culture. Right now, some young artists seem to be competing over who's more dangerous, who's more street, and who allegedly has the most bodies. But the consequences are real. Lives are being lost, people are getting life sentences, and entire futures are being destroyed over rap beef, internet clout, and viral posts. And that's where this story leaves us right now. One viral Instagram caption, a name tied to one of the most controversial cases in hip-hop history, and suddenly the whole culture is debating it all over again. Whether Pooh Shiesty meant it as a joke, a diss, or just another moment of internet. Trolling, the reaction shows how quickly old stories can resurface and shake the rap world. When names connected to real cases and real lives get mentioned, the conversation instantly turns serious. For Boosie, his name has already been through one of the most intense courtroom battles hip-hop has ever seen. And even years later, people are still bringing those allegations back into the spotlight. So now the question is, was this just clout chasing? Or did Pooh Shiesty know exactly what kind of reaction that caption would spark? In the end, the jury found Boosie not guilty of first-degree murder in the Terry Boyd case, and he walked out of the courtroom a free man on that charge. But Marlo Mike was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now fast forward to 2024, and here comes Pooh Shiesty, with his Instagram post claiming that the only rapper with more bodies than him is Lil Boosie. The streets immediately started talking. Was this a diss? Was he trolling? Or was he actually claiming something serious? Either way, the post got everyone's attention, including allegedly Boosie. Sources say Boosie responded by warning young rappers about playing with their freedom for social media attention. This whole situation highlights a bigger problem in hip-hop culture: rappers competing over who has more bodies and who is more dangerous. But the consequences are real. People are dying, going to prison for life, and destroying their futures over clout and social media posts.